It's time to save, New Jersey. New Jersey's Clean Energy Program is your guide to rebates and incentives that can save hundreds, even thousands of dollars for businesses and residents throughout the state by making smarter energy choices. Start today with an energy assessment. We're lighting the way to a clean energy future. Join in at njcleanenergy.com or call 866-NJ-SMART.
My name is Dorothy Smullen. I'm a teacher naturalist with New Jersey Audubon. And we're here to do some fungi appreciation, basically. And our theme is sustainable future, but we need to learn from the past as well for appreciation and going forward. So I am going to hold up each of these display items and give you a little background history. Now the pages that you have in front of you, that's just a little review of different fungi groups. If you're into science teaching, you know, you should know all of that. At the bottom, I've been a longtime member of New Jersey Mycorrhizal Association. The website is at the bottom of the page. And actually, I joined in 1975, so I've been at it a long time. A little bit about a mushroom life cycle, some of the structures on common fleshy fungi, another picture vocabulary page. This page, because most people join the New Jersey Club because they want to know what they can eat. So this page is telling you the foolproof 4. So if you read the little blurbs for each of these 4 kinds of mushrooms, and you shouldn't be able to make any mistakes. I even have a small piece of the chicken mushroom. So it's orange on top and yellow on the bottom. And this page are just some of the common fungi found in New Jersey. And finally, last year I created a fungi facts page, and I hope you'll have time on your own to read that through, because to me it's been fascinating. And one of the items talks about this. So this is our past history. 350 million years ago, this was the largest organism on the earth. It was 20 feet tall, and when they found fossil evidence of this thing, all right, they didn't know what it was. They thought it was maybe some kind of plant. Well, it turns out with a lot of structural looking at it and microscopic slices, they've decided it's a fungus and possibly a lichen. Its name is Prototaxites. So that's in your list of facts, and that's a real fun thing. So they've been around a long, long time. If we move to about 5,000 years ago, many of you know about Ötzi. This is the frozen guy found in the Alps 5,000 years ago. And he had a belt on his person, and inside the belt, in a pouch, there was some rawhide strips and little bits of a white fungus. This is the birch polypore, grows as a shelf or bracket fungus on the side of a birch tree. And this fungus he was using as medicine. They do believe that if you took little bits of that, it would help against intestinal worms. Its other purpose was to actually stop bleeding. It's a styptic. And the other thing he had in a pouch in the belt was little bits of this fungus, which is known as the tinder fungus. And in that pouch, along with the little bits, there were pieces of flint. So most of you know what you can do with flint and this fungus. You can start a fire. And in Eastern Europe, today, there's the tinder fungus. They actually use it to make like a fake leather. So on this purse, I wish you could all come up and touch this, but we have other things to think about with COVID. But this is not suede. It feels exactly like suede, but it's made from this fungus with a special technique. So they sell hats in Eastern Europe and Romania, hats and bags and slippers. Also, there's a gentleman with a huge fungus. The old name was Fomitopsis officinalis. So anything with the species name officinalis was used for medicine. And in the ancient Greeks actually used it for consumption, that's TB. And the Native Americans on the West Coast used it for smallpox. And this fellow has actually done a study of some of the chemicals, and it is an antiviral substance. And sometimes you can find it carved because the tribal shamans in the West Coast Native Americans, they put these large carved bodies on their gravestones. So probably to ward off any evil spirits, or it was used as a gravestone. This is a delightful little pamphlet on medicinal mushrooms, and you can look on the back, or I'll leave it on the back if you wanted to take a photograph, if you wanted to purchase it, very inexpensive. For thousands of years in Asian cultures, they've been using a mushroom known as the fungus of immortality, and that's Ganoderma lingchi. You can go to an Asian market and buy tea bags with ground up lingchi, and it definitely does have substances for the immune system. And the Japanese call it reishi mushroom. The species that we have here in the United States may be similar, but it's not the actual lingchi, it's Ganoderma curtisii. So we're going to move to another medicinal mushroom found in Tibet, and the farmers in Tibet have given up farming. That's because they're making more money gathering this caterpillar fungus. It's a little tiny thing, just maybe about that size, and it's connected to a caterpillar under the ground that's probably about to pupate. And they gather these and sell them to China and Japan because they're used as medicine, but also as an aphrodisiac. So you can imagine why they're worth a lot of money. Their value is greater than gold. But something very similar to that species is Cordyceps subsessilis. And this is a sexual form. It's another fungus parasitizing a little caterpillar in decaying wood. And it was found in Cornell Woods, not far away in Tibet. And it turned out that this is the sexual form of the asexual form of a drug, a fungus drug, called cyclosporin. And maybe you might know that that is actually used in transplant patients. And a fun thing for maybe some of your students to read about, it's another cordyceps that creates a zombie ant. It actually, before it kills it, will affect its behavior. So the ant climbs up a tree, and the spores are released way high up where they're going to blow in the wind. Fun thing. And this is found all over New Jersey. This is turkey tails, another little bracket fungus. And it is now being studied because it's being used as a treatment along with some other cancer drugs. I have a specimen here. And mushrooms actually are very healthy, lots of vitamins and minerals, no fat, and you can even grow some of your own in an outdoor situation, although it might take a year after you set up the logs with the correct spawn. Those are shiitake mushrooms. And an interesting thing is that mushrooms may be the best way to fight off aging. So, new research has found two antioxidants in fungi, known as ergothioneine and glutathione, and these are heat stable, and they're not found in other produce that you can buy. They're just in mushrooms, so very important. And even bees can be helped out. This is the same Stamets fellow who was trying to figure out how to help the beekeepers with the bee situation with colony collapse disorder. And so he put out sugar solutions with some of these important medicinal mushrooms. And the actual amount of disease and resistance, the disease was less on the bees, and the resistance was up against the various mites and viruses. So, excellent thought. Now, and that's important in terms of sustainability for our future. And I don't know whether you've seen any of this. All right, these are leather products made from fungus mycelium. And a lot of companies are going into making something like styrofoam, but not styrofoam, and made from, again, fungus mycelium. There's a little, looks like a cosmetic sponge, but that is made from the mycelium also. So, we also have some kind of crafty fun things that people do in the club. And so this particular mushroom can create all those mushroom dyed wool. I get a chance to do this every once in a while. You have to know the right kind of mushrooms. Interesting thing is that, and I have here a little ruby-throated hummingbird nest. And it's covered with lichen, and lichens are actually classified in the fungus kingdom, the fifth kingdom. So another interesting fact is that the largest organism on Earth is an underground mass of filaments of the Armillaria ostoyae, or the other name for it is Armillaria solidipes. And it's one of the honey mushrooms, but they've tested all these threads that are under the ground, attached to the roots, and they're all the same DNA, and they spread for 3 to 4 acres. So, pretty amazing. Largest organism ever. But the most important thing that you might take away from this, and we're going to explore, but unfortunately it's been dry for days, and when we had the outdoor event for ANJEE at the Coach Barn, we were closer to some really good woods to see the variety of fungi. So I've actually put some branches out on the trail, which we're going to try to find. in a moment. But what you're going to take away from this, I hope, is the term mycorrhizae, mycorrhizae. It means fungus root. And there's two major kinds. One is called endomycorrhizae, and the filaments of the fungus under the ground actually go into the cells of the root. And this is important with fruit trees, grasses, and other kinds of vegetables. The other kind is called ectomycorrhizae, and the filaments of the fungus go in between the cells and also create a sheath around the root tip. Why is this important? Over 80% of all plants on Earth are connected by their roots to fungi, which bring in extra water, extra minerals, particularly phosphorus, and of course the fungus gets a little bit of sugar from the deal. So it's so important. A healthy forest today, you have to have mushrooms. You have to have mycorrhizal mushrooms, these endomycorrhizae species. So it's essential for a healthy forest. The men in golf courses, all right, the guy taking care of the tees and the fairways, they know now that they can't throw down lots and lots of fertilizer. That's going to kill the fungus. They really have to understand the kinds of mycorrhizae that are naturally in the soil to take care of the grass. So lots and lots of important benefits for both. So it's a mutualistic, symbiotic relationship. And I'd like you all, if you have a pen handy, to put down somewhere on your pages, to do a search in the Google search, BBC video, Wood Wide Web. And the image is going to look like that. Kind of a green background with some trees, and it says BBC News. It's going to be, what, 2-3 minutes long, if that, and in cartoon form, but it's the greatest thing that you can show to whoever you're teaching, because it's letting you know how trees communicate with each other via these threads of the fungi.
Can you repeat that again, please?
Yes, sure. BBC, British Broadcasting, whatever, video, Wood Wide Web, WOODWIDE Web. And that should come up if you look at that image right there, and it's a great little program. So, are you ready to walk?
Yeah.
It's over 3,000 dried specimens housed at the Chrysler Herbarium at Rutgers. We've been doing that taxonomy of what we collect throughout the state and various forays at doing records since 1979. And so we have an understanding of the diversity of the state. And I do believe if you go to the website, you might be able to find some of that data. Okay. Bring it right up to your eye, and then you're going to move your object in and out. Okay? You don't have to figure out that. So, you'll notice that we've got lichens. You get close, they are classified in the fungi kingdom. There are two major groups of fleshy fungi, the ascomycetes and the basidiomycetes. That's going to be on your first page that you got. If you come over here, I can look and see maybe 4 different kinds, 4 different species. So as you go past, get close, you'll see a little yellow one. That's called candle flame lichen, or I like to call it the lemon lichen. It's yellow. Pretty trees, even on other surfaces. This one here is very, very different. It's kind of frilly. It's called a ruffle lichen, Parmotrema hypertropum. Whoops. That's a very... I know it's going to be hard with not being able to share, but I think if we're all wiped our hands or used sanitizer, don't feel bad about picking it up. This one, I want each one of you to come over and pull off one of these little brackets, and then take your loop and look underneath. The top part is zonate and hairy, tomentose. The bottom has little holes. So it has pores, and those represent very tiny tubes that the spores, when they're ready to reproduction, the spores drop out and blow in the wind. So when you see a fruiting body like this is just part of the fungus that's for reproduction. The rest of the fungus is in that log, these threads. If you see a mushroom coming up out of the lawn, the threads are in the ground, okay? It's only what we call a fruiting body. And so, can you find the little tiny holes? All right, so this has pores underneath. Now, when you go into the woods, there's not any woods I haven't been in that doesn't have important decomposers, bracket fungi that are saprobes, not mycorrhizal. They're not parasites, but they break down the dead wood, and that's what turkey tails is. It's a saprobe. It's only going to be on something like that, a branch. But there's one that looks like it, called the false turkey tail. The top looks similar, but on the underside, you're only going to see a smooth surface, no little pores. So that's how you tell the difference. So if you're taking pictures of fungi, guess what you have to do? You gotta, pick them so you get a photograph of the underneath and the top and the side. And even if you're talking about the deadly ones, Amanita species, in order to identify those, you actually have to take your knife and dig the bulb, the cup that's in the ground, out. But, that's if you are interested in joining the club, some of the techniques. But hopefully you all got a chance to use your loop and see the pores. I'm going to leave that there. That's going to go home with me. Some more excellent example of that lemon lichen, and it's following a path of water down the tree. In lichens, there's 3 major groups. Crustose, which are firmly attached to the substrate. Foliose, which are leaf-like, and you can kind of, if they're wet, pull them away from the tree or a rock. And then there's also fruticose, which have either shrubby pattern to them or beard-like. I see something on a log down here. Anybody? You're welcome to pick it up. Yep. surface is kind of smooth, but the underside is poroid.
Look at it again.
Do certain fungi only grow on certain types of trees?
Some can be very specific, the same with lichens.
Okay, yeah.
Some lichens are only on some kinds of rocks and not on others. Some lichens are only going to find them on conifer branches.
Okay.
A lot of people think that the lichen is hurting the tree, but that's the bark of the tree is dead material. The lichen has nothing to do with hurting a tree. Sometimes when you find a dying tree with a lot of lichen on, why is that? That's because without the leaf cover on the tree, there's more light for the lichens to grow. So there's a lot of things that are important for lichens to grow. Very, very shady forest, you're not going to find a lot of those lichens. And, of course, certain species, particularly those fruticose ones, are very susceptible to air pollution in the sulfur dioxide kind. And so it's very important. In 1972, when we had the Clean Air Act, and the smokestacks had to have scrubbers on them to remove some of the sulfur dioxide, certain lichens that are moderately susceptible to that as an air pollutant started coming back. And unfortunately, some of the fruticose lichens that have been found here in New Jersey, because there are records, herbarium records at the New York Botanical Garden, they no longer exist because of all the energy and coal producing in Ohio, Pennsylvania. At first they said, all right, let's get rid of this pollution by raising the smokestacks real high. So the local people didn't have the pollution. But our westerly winds just blew those air pollutants to the east and gave us some of the acid rain and also interfered with the growth of some of those very susceptible lichens. But there are some lichens that have come back very strong, and they look like the little yellow-green guys that maybe some of you saw on the branches. One of those things for sustainable future. In PA, I believe there was a population of the spotted lanternfly. That's our really, really bad. And it's not a fly, by the way. It's a leafhopper. And its favorite host is the tree of heaven, Ailanthus. And but when it eats all of those leaves, it's going to head to apples and grapes, and so are... Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, so yeasts, by the way, are fungi. It's a single-celled fungus. So if you like beer, wine, and cheese, great. But yeasts have been genetically engineered to produce insulin and human serum albumin and a whole lot of other things that are, again, great for humankind. But there are some fungi that are parasites, and they'll get into an insect and then digest the whole inside and cause this little white fuzz all over the insect. And in this one population of spotted lanternfly in PA somewhere, the population was controlled by this fungus. But now and that was a year ago. So the thing is, can we figure out how to spread these spores, or is it going to affect a whole lot of other insects? What's the specificity? So I don't know, but certainly there are biological ways of control, biocontrol. So this is a funny crust-looking thing, all right?
Good stick.
And it's It's very hard to tell that it has pores, but this is and it's only specific to growing on elm. This is an American elm tree, still alive. I even have one in my backyard, so I get this fungus on the fallen branches. And this is, the old name was Coronidulus conchifer, and the new name is Trametes conchifer. Lots of mycologists are doing studies with DNA and evolving, family trees. And so a lot of higher level taxonomy terms and the genera, the families, the orders are changing. But you can take a close-up look. Sometimes they fade to white and sometimes they have some banding. So this is actually called the bird's nest fungus, but there's another bird's nest species that are found in wood chips that are also very tiny, and the spores are actually in little sacs, peridioles, that look like eggs. This doesn't have any eggs in it. This one, Trametes conchifer. A lot of fungi don't have common names, so we just go by the scientific name. But don't be afraid to look, and those were here. I didn't plant them. The lichen over there, that's the Flavopomelia caparata. They call it the green shield lichen. That's the one that's moderately sensitive to sulfur dioxide, and it's come back, wonderfully. You can even find it on a city street, on the bar. But then there are other species too. You sometimes have to be able to look on the underside and see what the color is. I actually didn't bring my little lichen key. Poison ivy growing under the rock.
Absolutely not. It's not going to get you.
Yeah, thank you, Anne. But you can see the grayish lichens and then the other that have a little bit of yellow in. Coleus lichens.
Oh, you're okay.
I planted this one. But if you're walking in the forest and you see this bracket fungus, it just looks like a big turkey tail, doesn't it? But when you turn it over, wow! This is called the gill polypore. So the pores are very elongate and they look like gills when they're dry. But it's a lovely thing. If you're anxious to just look at it, if you're not afraid.
It looks like old books. Beautiful.
So with your loop, you can look closely at some of the bits, and even back where we saw some other things of lichen. Lichens are interesting in that some of them do have little sexual structures that are actually, I'll put that there if anyone wants to look closely. They have sexual structures that produce just the fungus spores. So how is that lichen, which is a fungus that's taken up farming, it's got algae inside, how is that going to reproduce? It's got to land where that kind of algae is to incorporate. So most lichens actually reproduce asexually by vegetative propagation, and they have structures on them that can break off in by birds or insects, and they've got little bits of everything. They've got the algae and they've got the hyphae or the filaments of the fungus, and so it's a fun thing to, and you have to kind of look closely at some lichens to find out what those structures are. They're called Ceridia or Isidia. Isidia on the top surface look like little bits of fingers or coral coming up. Very, very tiny. And if you're in a science classroom and you have a stereo microscope or a dissecting microscope, bring in some lichens to show your students, because they are fascinating structures. They're really like little forests, and everyone is going to be a little bit different. And then you might find some incredible creepy crawly critters on top of them. How many of you have ever seen a tardigrade? Yes, yeah. A real one. Well, they're called water bears, and they're the most remarkable. You know, just Google that to a search on a video on tardigrades. So they like growing on moss and lichens. So here's the trick. I had some flat moss growing on a board in my backyard, and collect it when it's dry. Get a little bit of distilled water and put some of that dry moss or lichen in a small container, add a little bit of distilled water. You collected it when it's been dry, and let it sit overnight. And just a little bit of water, because then with your pipette, a fine pipette, you're going to pipette that debris up from the water and check it out under the microscope. And if you carefully search, and I was lucky, first try, able to see these funny little creepy crawly things that if you look at an evolutionary family tree, they're just below where the arthropods come out. So a lot of fun. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
My dad said, like, when he was younger, he used to go mushroom hunting, and you could tell if it was poisonous if you poked it with a stick and it exploded. Is that true?
No. Good question. None of the old wives' tales. There's one that if you put a silver coin in and it goes black or not black, you know, it's edible or not. None of them are right. You've got to get a field guide and, you know, join the club. We have forays on a regular year, you know, almost every week, spring through fall. We have winter meetings. It's only $10, and you get an online newsletter every 2 months. So it's quite a fun group. We have photography contest as well. And our former president, he's actually a chef. So one of our our February meeting, and I don't know whether we're going to have it or not without a vaccine, but it's called mycorrhizal. Phage means eating, so it's eating mushrooms. And so we are actually on good terms with one of the growers in Kennett Square, and they that's the mushroom capital of the world, in case you've never heard of it. Great place to visit. But the Phillips mushroom farm, they grow a lot of the interesting exotics. They culture them there. One of the pieces on the table is a maitake mushroom. It's called hen of the woods. It's a very good edible. And again, the piece of chicken mushroom. One interesting thing about the store mushroom, I think in the 40s, in the 1940s, originally that cultivated species was brown. So your cremini is really the species. And there was some kind of a mutation, and the fungus was white. So they decided that, and I think this occurred in Europe somewhere, oh, the Americans are going to love it if it's a white button, because they like everything pure. So it's the same species, the cremini, the baby bellas, and it took people going to Europe and learning about portobellas, that here they are, nice and fleshy and meaty and tasty, because in earlier times they were throwing those big ones away because they were overripe, so to speak, those portobellas. So portobellas, baby bells, cremini, and the white buttons are all the same species. So you tell your restaurant people if they're serving exotic fungi. No. But you can get some of the patty straw mushrooms in cans. And, oh, I left it in the car. I also collected some jelly fungi, and I put them in water in a cup, so I have to bring those out. And I'll put them somewhere, so if you want to feel a jelly fungus, that's from the wild, you can. But good questions. There's always a lot of things that I forget to say. But any other questions?
Are there like endangered I feel like I always say fungi. Is it fungi? Okay, first question, is it fungi or fungi?
Well, if you're listening to the British, they're going to say fungi.
Uh-huh.
The I, it depends upon whether you want to give it a American English or these terms are Latin and Greek. So the I in Latin is pronounced E.
Yeah.
All right. So, and all your animalia, all right, plante, those are Latinish terms or Greek terms. And so what I say is I want to go along with that, and I say fungi.
Okay.
The I's are E's. But if you're singular, fungus, then you, in English, the hard G sound with the U after it, right? So you say, we say giant, but of course that's an English word, but that's, the I after the G is a, make it soft sound. So that's why I say fungi, fungus.
Got it.
And, you know, no one really knows, but I do believe that the I should be pronounced as E in Latin. So, good question.
Yes. And then, so, okay, my second question is, so, like, are there, like, endangered fungi?
Okay, it's interesting. There can be invasive fungi.
Okay.
And one of them was found in Central Park maybe 5 years ago. It's a more southern species, and landscapers spreading wood chips, all right, have put this funny thing called a stinkhorn.
Oh, I saw one recently.
Yeah, they're funny things. They're phallic symbols. There's several species, but one came up from the south.
Okay.
All right, but there are also very rare fungi in terms of what the club has found. There was a beautiful blue-capped Enteloma species that's got gills underneath, and it was found in the 1880s by a man named Ellis down in the Pine Barrens under white cedar.
Okay.
All right, and you know how many people are going into cedar swamps that know mushrooms? So it wasn't found ever again except the 1880s. And 2 years ago, someone found it down in the Pine Barrens. We have a group of people that are caretakers and doing a fungal diversity study at Franklin Parker Preserve down in the Pine Barrens, and they found it again. So it's quite exciting. It was sent to the Enteloma specialist up at can't think of his college, but anyway, he just has put out the most recent field guide. His name's Dr. Tim Baroni, B-A-R-O-N-I, and so that's exciting.
Yeah.
And now even this year, on one of our early forays, someone found it again. But it's always that habitat, and so there can be, but we don't know enough. There's not been enough of the studies. So in the New Jersey Mycological, we're very pleased to doing even just our list. That's all we have. But we do have some of those validated in herbarium specimens to get an idea of what the diversity is. And but yeah, good question. So just appreciate fungi. Unfortunately, you know, people know that some of them are poisonous to eat and deadly. Amanita bispirigera and Amanita phalloides. You don't even get sick till 12 to 20 hours later if you ate it. And there's not much they can do except maybe a liver transplant. It starts destroying your liver, the substances. And but they don't have any respect, like bats and snakes. But we all know how important those species are in our environment. So please realize that fungus deserve some importance. I know all that cellular level and DNA is important, but so is getting out in the world, and enjoying the environment. And walk in the woods, it's a wonderful thing. So, and if you take a picture of a mushroom and you want to send it to me, you can send it to Dorothy Smullen. My name's on those pages at njaudubon.org, but make sure you take a picture of the underneath as well. And sometimes fungi even have great fragrances. Some smell like cinnamon. There's one bolete, that's the fleshy one with pores underneath, that smells like bouillon, chicken bouillon. So keep exploring.